I think, Anssi, today we have had a conversation. We have conversation with you. Would you mind? I recording our conversation. Sometimes I can use part of them
Sure.
to tell our public, to know, what is a real, opinion from Finland, because nobody like me, in Finland, so many times, they are not aware of the country like Finland, that very, who understand the situation, between Russia and Ukraine. So I think this is a first purpose I actually, and also the second purpose is I want to ask you about opinion about, because people here is always talk about today is Ukraine, tomorrow is Taiwan, because Taiwan has been told many times about, to have a pre-warning about the conflict between China and Taiwan, and it's a long story, but you know very well as well. So the first question I want to ask is, what is the real cause of of the triggering this conflict between Ukraine and Russia?
Well, my understanding is very much that it is simply the sort of wish of Putin to have some kind of safety zone, as he calls it, against the West, against European Union, against NATO countries. And he thought that Ukraine becoming like a liberal democracy, part of the Europe, more strongly than so far, was a threat to him. And also, I believe, to some extent, he's very terrified of the idea that the Ukrainian people threw over the regime just by demonstrating and by showing their need for democracy, and that's a nightmare for Putin. So I think completely one-sided aggression. So for instance, in Finland, one of the consequences has been that now a large majority of the population wants Finland to join the NATO, to get military backup and defense, stronger defense in military terms, and because that was the opposite until the attack of Russia to Ukraine, and there are voluntary people are joining the Ukrainian army, and there are supplies being sent both officially from the Finnish government and from the people, just anything that they can do to help the Ukrainian people in their fight against the Russians.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, but one thing I'm very wondering about. I mean, after the war second, I mean, don't you think Russia's totally neglect the humanity, the aspect about attacking Ukraine in this way, because I really, from my side, I'm really a little bit surprised, because we have been St. Petersburg before, and for me, I mean, Russia seems also want to go to the to civilize and modern the cities, like the cities, in a democratic system, but it seems not, like as we have expected, huh?
Yeah, I think if there had been real democracy and people's voice had been heard and they had been asked, should we attack Ukraine? I think that the answer would have been very clear, no. So I believe this is only from the above, and the academic people are the only people, of course, that I know from Russia, and they are very much towards favoring the more emphasis on science, more emphasis on developing their economy, more emphasis on developing their society in large term, and not like. But I think these are huge miscalculations also from Putin, because he clearly anticipated that this would be sort of a clean, rapid strike, and then Ukraine would be ruled by pro-Russian regime, and this is a huge mistake.
Right. Okay. But go back to your very interesting, the consequences you just mentioned. So what is the proportion of the people, in support of joining the NATO's, to support the military service for being against the Russia? Yeah.
Well,
it's a majority,
polls are being released at least on a weekly basis, and I think the last one was 62% for and something like just 20% against.
All right.
And the rest don't know.
Yeah.
And,
so
and clearly, it's each and every political party, the president, the government, they are saying that, okay, let's not make any hasty conclusions, but it seems very clear that they are making all the preparations for sending in an application, but they don't want to make it public, of course.
Sure. Yeah, but I believe Finland is one of the countries in the world that we should pay respect and worship, because you already independent from Russia a long time ago, because you have your own, you have fighting such kind of the battle on your own way, on your own. So people are very interested. So Anssi, let me go back to the history. So have you some comment about when Finland independent of the Russians, how difficult it is at that time?
You mean in 1917?
Yeah, 1970. Yes.
Well, I think this was something that, once again, a part of a much bigger pattern about the policy of the former the Tsar's Russia, and how they should react to any sort of nationalities. And I believe they thought that they couldn't afford to have more military conflicts with smaller people such as Finland. But I guess they also calculated that, okay, Finland would join Soviet Union later on because the people would want to do it, and there would be some kind of red revolution in Finland also. But I think this was just an acute crisis all over Russia. That was becoming Soviet Union. They had to make quick decisions, and they said, okay, we won't start a new conflict. And so I think it was under the urgent situation. If there had been, I don't know, more democratic transition, then probably they wouldn't have allowed Finland to gain its independence. So we were kind of lucky in that situation.
Okay. Yeah, sure. And yeah, I think that I only have two questions, for asking you about. One of how Finland, support the refugee fled from Ukraine this time. Yeah.
They are given special status, so they don't need to go through the normal procedures for gaining the refugee status, but they are automatically given a temporary status, refugee status, which allows them to work, for instance, be employed in Finland. So yeah, and as I said, the public opinion is very much welcoming them. Strong sympathy.
Yeah. Okay, so my final question, Anssi, you understand, my final question is, so what's your opinion about the Taiwan, situation from your end? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess there's a very interesting parallel between Russia against Ukraine and China against Taiwan.
Yeah.
And so I guess if Russia now loses this combat, not perhaps in military terms but economic terms, and will be unable to achieve what they were aiming for, then I think that's probably a good sign for Taiwan as well. So that will discourage China from any aggression towards Taiwan, and probably would steer them, I hope so, towards more sort of peaceful relationship.
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
Clear.
Of course. From the viewpoint of the SDG, it's quite ironical. The sixth item is about peace. The 17th item, is about the friendship. But right now, you see, this seems, the off the road, about SDG. Yeah. So yeah. Thank you. Okay. Anssi, thank you so much about I have a chance of having conversation with you like this. So Basis, and also you want to ask, you want to talk to Anssi or? But Anssi, I really want to admit to you that we don't fully understand the Ukraine, because for us, Ukraine is, it's still very old-fashioned and still Soviet style, the countries. But as you say, they are more democratic during over the past 2 decades. Seems like that.
Yeah, and this has also sort of direct bearing, as we have, for instance, one student in the IPE program from Ukraine, and she's of course been terrified for the past month, and her sister has fled Ukraine and joined her now in Tampere. So we have sort of first-hand contact also to Ukraine. So this is touching all of us directly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Anssi, as far as I know, Ukraine, the background of the public health or medical resources is quite is not so good compared with other country in the Central Europe or the Eastern Europe. So, what do you think about after this war? How people suffers for this kind of the situation in terms of health care?
Yeah, clearly they are a member of the former Soviet Union, the former Commonwealth of independent states countries that don't have a strong health system to start with. And now, of course, the healthcare is devastated by this military conflict, by this war, and I think that will be complicated, will make recuperation much more difficult for them also. So they will need to once again rebuild their health system and their infrastructure and everything, and probably their professionals, including healthcare professionals, have fled the country as refugees. So that will be another major problem, and sort of it's ironic that our Ukrainian IPE student was focusing on these former Soviet countries and their health systems and their health policies, but I think their policy, like anti-smoking, anti-alcohol policy, is now currently not the major concern for Ukraine, but it's much more urgent questions about just trying to sustain a working health system and then rebuilding it after the military conflict is over. So yeah, they are very vulnerable in that sense. They are not like the Western European countries.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure. Anssi, I heard. Okay. So let us finish. The talk about the war, and take care, and yeah, keep in touch.
You too. You too. Thanks for organizing this meetup, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.